my sunny days soon turn into showers.
For now all that's left is a garden of sorrow, and the forecast is full.
More raining tomorrow. Sitting here now, no one left or beside. Ain't got no friends, I'm alone on this ride. 'Cause I always live for excitement and fury, which has landed me here, said the judge and the jury.
All I have left is this pain in my soul, and the years still to come till they grant my parole.
Sitting here now, no one left or beside. Ain't got no friends, I'm alone on this ride. As I sleep, my mind gives me pardon,
And I am home again
in my own lovely garden. Sitting here now, no one left or beside. Ain't got no friends, I'm alone on this ride. Ain't got no friends, I'm alone on this ride.
That is a song from the Songbirds, a compilation of prison recordings put out by the New South Wales Community Restorative Centre. You can find, that one came out last year, I think, that edition, but there's 3 editions. You can find them on Bandcamp, songbirds.bandcamp.com. Hey, another project by the Community Restorative Centre, although it was set up as a very grassroots DIY project by a couple of Brisbane anarchists, actually, back a few years back. Shout out to them if they are listening. Is the Paper Chained Journal of prison writings for prisoners by prisoners. And I interviewed Damien Linnane, who is currently the editor. Let's have a listen.
My name's Damien. I'm doing a PhD focusing on mental health in prison through the University of Newcastle, and the other main thing that occupies my time, of course, is I'm the editor of Paper Chained, which is an art and writing magazine for people in prison.
Yeah, so can you tell us a bit more about the Paper Chained Journal?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I should tell you about how it all started. I was in prison myself for 10 months, starting at the end of 2015. And there was no education or therapy in prison, and there was nothing. The prison gave us nothing constructive to do, and so because I had nothing constructive to do, I decided to teach myself art, and I also I wrote some short stories and a novel by hand. But there was no place for me to send any of the stuff I was making because there was no prison magazine, and not only was there no prison magazine, it had been so long that nobody in prison could remember there ever being one. There has been several over the years, but it had been a long time. And so I was like, this would really give prisoners a really great creative outlet, and would just really improve mental health and self-esteem, just giving them something constructive like that. So I made the decision to try and start one up after I got out, and this is a good thing, but somebody else beat me to it by a couple of months. And so I reached out to her and I said, well, look, this is great because I have a life to rebuild. I wanted to do something like this. Can I help you with it? And for the next 4.5, 5 years, she produced the magazine annually, and I was the only person kind of volunteering consistently on that. And then beginning of 2021, she reached out and she said she couldn't do it anymore and asked if there was any chance I'd like to take it over. And I said I would.
So, yeah, who are the writers and who's the audience?
Yeah, so it's actually funny. A few weeks ago, I had somebody on the outside come up to me and say, "Oh, look, Damien, I read the magazine because it's freely available on the website. Anyone can read it." And she's like, "Look, it's really great, but I just found it was like a little too depressing, like the content. I think you need to break it up more with spread out the sad stories in between with other stuff." And I said, "Oh, look, that's good feedback in general, but I mean, our target audience is people in prison, and that stuff, if anything, is going to make people feel more heard because our main contributors are people in custody, and they write about things about that affect them. So there's a lot of stories about being depressed, being isolated, missing your family, not having a lot of hope for the future. And I mean, as a person who's struggled with mental health in the past as well, I know that it's much better to express those feelings some way constructively rather than just bottle them up. So the target audience is people in prison. Most of our contributors are people in prison. We do accept things from former prisoners as well. Of course, I have a regular column in the magazine now from a former prisoner in Victoria, and we're open to families of prisoners and people supportive of prison reform as well. But it's I'd say it's 80% people in prison, 20% former prisoners, and we rarely get anything from anybody else. Yeah.
You mentioned that you were in prison yourself, and in the last issue of Paper Chain, you wrote in quite a lot of detail about your own history. I guess, does that experience of spending time on the inside yourself inform how you make Paper Chain and decisions that you make around the magazine and what should be in it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, prison completely changed my life, but actually, unlike most people, in a good way. So, everything I'm doing now, my PhD is focusing on making mental health treatment available in prison because there was none when I was there, and I got involved with a magazine because there wasn't one of those either, and I knew that, ironically, that would help people in the absence of mental health treatment. It is tricky sometimes finding a fine line because we're approved by corrective services in New South Wales. So in New South Wales prisons, during the pandemic, they brought out tablets for people so they could have video visits because regular visits got shut down. And but the tablets are still in there, and because we're officially approved by corrective services, we go out digitally on the tablets, which means about 10,000 people in New South Wales are able to access the magazine. But it is a very fine line to tread. Trying to let prisoners express themselves how I'd like them to, and to talk about issues that really affect them, and still manage to get approval from the prison system. So, I mean, I do always try to push the boundaries a little bit. It makes me happy when I get things that are have a little bit of criticism, because I mean, one of the reasons conditions never really improve in prison is because it's out of sight, out of mind. Nobody talks about it. Nobody's aware these issues are in there. So I do like to have some critical criticism because, I mean, that's also healthy for the prisoners to get that out in a more constructive medium. Something I've witnessed myself in custody is that people are very frustrated, and so they'll take out their frustration at the prison officer at the counter, and I mean, they can't do anything about the prison policy, even if they wanted to, which they probably don't anyway. But something I do try to do very much in the magazine as well, though, is I try to share positive stories of people who have made the most of their time after they've gotten out, and the reason I do that is because one of the most influential books I read when I was in custody was the autobiography of Malcolm X, and the reason that was so inspiring to me was because he was someone who had been in prison for a long time and had gotten out, and then changed the world essentially, and I found that very inspiring. So I do now that I have funding to make the magazine. After I took it over, I applied for funding because it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and it was too expensive to produce. But ever since I've gotten funding, I'm now able to create content, and so something I do is I do interviews with other people who have gotten out and talking about what they've managed to do with their lives. There's actually a lot of people, former prisoners, who have started out, or started up organizations that assist other former prisoners upon release. So, that those are always positive stories to share. But as you mentioned, in the last issue, on the issue before the last one, we started sharing transcripts from Jailbreak Radio, and I hosted an episode of that in early 2022, and the producer of that actually encouraged me to share the episode I hosted in the magazine, and that would have fallen in that category as well, because when I went into prison, part of the reason I committed the crime, which was because I was really depressed and I felt like I had nothing to lose. Whereas now, like, things are going very well. I have a job I really love. I've been working as an artist and a writer. I'm doing this PhD, and so I want to share my story, because I mean, hopefully that tells other people that maybe there's hope for them as well. So there's definitely some of it's just like fun art and poetry and stuff, but then I do like to have some constructive criticism of prison in there, and then also share the inspiring stories too.
You mentioned, I guess, that in the absence of proper therapy and things like that in prison, that writing and drawing and things is an important therapeutic process for people in prison. Do you see that in the people who are contributing to Paper Chain?
Yes. Something that really helps keep me going is that I get letters every day. I go down to the post office and I our PO box, and I pick up the mail from people in prison, and it's quite common for me to get letters saying something along the lines of, "Oh, this is incredible. Like, I wish there had been a magazine like this when I came in 10 years ago. Like, it's really changed my life to see my work in print." And so, I mean, I do get like some like really great feedback from the magazine. It's we've never actually had any criticisms. It's all been just great feedback from people inside. And so I mean, I don't think we're like changing the world, but we're definitely changing the world for some people. Helping them get through their time. And it's like, it's hard to explain to anyone who hasn't been in prison how isolating things are. Like, something small, like just receiving a letter in the mail can really change your entire day. That might be the only nice thing that happens to you all day, is that the guards slide a letter underneath your door. And so, it definitely does make a huge difference to some people, like, getting them through their time. And, we really need a lot of support like that, especially since the prison doesn't provide any. So, I mean, I am grateful to the prison system for making us available on the tablets they have. But I mean, at the end of the day, essentially, I think I'm doing them a massive favor. I'm providing a constructive outlet and entertainment for prisoners at zero cost to them. Essentially, I think, we're doing what they should be doing. But it is what it is. And I mean, I love my job, so I'm personally, I don't mind.
That is Damien Linnane, there, editor of Paper Chain Journal. We'll have more of that interview in a second, but here's another song from Songbird, Language Warning on this track.
Just representing the boys in the ACMU. This is one out. Gotta stay out of prison, fuck definite addiction. The shit's not right. When I was blazing the pipe, not knowing what was right. By 14, I'm rose with my crime. Chick, bang, crime, eyes and white. Love flashes for my eyes. Lost in the crowd, with nowhere to go. I just wanna escape the flashbacks and memories. Making changes, becoming famous. Get my name now so that people know me. Missing the ones that are closest to me. Sitting in myself, feeling fucking lonely. One sec, bro, this ain't right, bro. What the fuck is this? Is that even life? It's time to make a change. Sick of playing games. My emotions remain the same. Instead of the house of pain, could be the house of mate. Sick of playing games. It's time to make a change. Sick of playing games. Well, I started from a young age, being addicted to the drugs and a struggle for love. With only one hour out, what the fuck is that about? Always stressing out, for letting my loved ones down. When I leave them gates, I'll be screaming, fuck that place. Nobody can show me, it's only me that can make a change. There have been struggles in my past, but I don't look back, it's time to make a fresh start. I drive Lux cars and live on Lux properties. Still there's gonna be someone trying to stop me. My emotions remain the same. Instead of the house of pain, could be the house I make. Sick of playing games. It's time to make a change. Sick of playing games. My emotions remain the same. Instead of the house of pain, could be the house I make. Sick of playing games. It's time to make a change. Sick of playing games. It's time to make
You are listening to the Paradigm Shift on 4ZZZ. That song was called Emotions. It's off the most recent Songbirds album of songs written by prisoners in New South Wales prisons. I quite like that one. A bit of self-reflection. They're always worthwhile. Before then, we were speaking to Damien Linnane, editor of Paper Chain magazine. I'm going to go back to the second part of chatting with Damien.
You said you're doing a PhD on mental health in prisons, and it's obviously there are massive mental health issues in most people that go into prison, and those are generally only exacerbated by the isolation and the anxiety and things like that in prison. Do you want to share some of what your research is and some of the suggestions that you think could make it better?
Yeah, so when I went in, I was quite depressed even before I went in, and then obviously you go in and it doesn't improve your life. So I had a mandatory appointment with a prison psychologist, and she said something to me that has changed the rest of my life, and that's why I'm pursuing this PhD. So I told her that I'd started on a mental health care plan while I was on bail, and I was finding it really beneficial. And I said to her, I really think it'd be really beneficial for me to continue that therapy in prison. And she smiled sadly, and she said, Damien, everyone in prison would benefit from therapy, but unfortunately they don't give us any funding for that. Our job's just to assess whether people are suicidal or dangerous to write reports for corrections. And so that's the issue. There's lots of psychologists working in prisons, but none of them actually help people. They're employed by the prison service to write reports like for parole. And eventually my depression got worse, and I went to see a mental health nurse, and I said, look, is there anything you can do for me at all? And she said, look, unfortunately, the only thing, and she was really upset to tell me this. I could tell, she was, didn't want to be the bearer of bad news. But, she said, the only thing I can do for you is give you the phone number of a counselling service to call once you're released. You can't really call a service like that in prison. You can, but our phone calls in New South Wales are limited to 6 minutes. So you can't unpack a lot of childhood trauma in 6 minutes, especially when there's a group of guys standing behind you in line waiting to use the phone who can overhear. So, and I was very confused about why there was no mental health care in prison. And so, shortly before I got out, I wrote a sternly worded letter to the Minister of Corrections, who was David Elliott at the time. And one of the things I complained about was the fact I couldn't access my mental health care plan in prison. And I was like, I don't understand this. Why can't we have this treatment in there? And his reply to that was extremely terse. He just said, the mental health care plan is provided by Medicare. Prisoners do not have access to Medicare. And that was the first time I learned that I'd lost my Medicare access in prison. And that's what the big issue is. The only Australian citizens who don't have access to Medicare are prisoners. And so a big portion of my PhD is focusing on trying to make Medicare available in prisons. And I actually had an article about that published quite recently in the Alternative Law Journal, making the strong case for that. So that's the elephant in the room, really. That's the big issue that needs to be changed before we can get mental health treatment in there. And that's what my PhD has been focusing on so far. Yeah.
And just finally, you mentioned that the magazine is funded by Restorative Justice Centre. This is a phrase, restorative justice, that some people might be familiar with. Do you want to share with us what that phrase kind of means and what it looks like in practice for Restorative Justice Centre in New South Wales?
Yeah, so we're funded by the Community Restorative Centre. They do provide a lot of treatment for people transitioning back into the community. They also run a couple other programs. There's a Jailbreak Radio, which I host an episode of, and they also fund something called Songbirds, which is people going into prison to record music. Restorative justice, that is something that I definitely think would be a huge step forward. So for people who aren't familiar with that, that's a way where instead of the current criminal justice system we have is if you've been a victim of crime, the only purpose you serve in court is to be a witness for the prosecution. You testify in court or you make a statement, and a lot of the times the prosecution don't even update you on the outcome. You have to call them. Your only purpose is to act as a witness for the Crown. Whereas restorative justice is where you bring the victim and the person who's committed the crime together in like a circle, and you have a lot of other people there, and you basically get them to talk and explain what happened, and obviously if the person who's committed the crime is willing to do that, there'll be apologies and stuff. And the overwhelming majority of people who participate in things like these around the world, it ends up being better for both the victim of crime and also the person who's committed it. And, it's a way to aid in healing. And unfortunately, our criminal justice system we have, I'm not saying people don't deserve to have some form of punishment, but I mean, it doesn't really serve any purpose in the sense that, it doesn't heal trauma for the victim. It doesn't provide any rehabilitation for the person who's committed the crime. And, so it's just like a downward spiral, and it makes everything worse. So, restorative justice is, definitely what we should be doing. I know in New South Wales we experimented with it in the 90s. It's why that never really took off. It's probably a political thing. I assume the Conservatives didn't want to fund it, but so it's a shame it didn't, because in the places in the world where they've done that, it's definitely had a huge impact. And the ironic thing is that lots of cultures around the world used to restore things with just their own informal restorative justice, the Indigenous Australians had circle sentencing and things. And then Europeans came and they brought this, inverted commas, civilized system. We're like, oh, no, we'll take all care of this formally. And, there are all these indigenous and traditional restorative, practices were thrown out, and they got replaced by this elitist garbage, really. Basically I think there should be a big pushback to going back to restorative justice. But, that's like a lot of things in the criminal justice system. Unfortunately, I don't see seeing it happening anytime soon, but it would definitely make a big impact for everyone. There are no losers in restorative justice. The people are less likely to offend, and victims are more likely to heal. Yeah.
Mm. Yes, well, it doesn't seem to be a big vote winner. Trying to make things better for prisoners and better for criminals.
And that's the whole issue with the Medicare in prison. We've got all the evidence. Not there are no losers in that. It's actually cheaper for taxpayers to fund Medicare in prisons in the long term, because we know for a fact that people who have mental health treatment in prison are less likely to reoffend. And so it's more effective to taxpayers, but politicians still don't want to touch it, because anytime you say, let's improve the rights of people in prison, there's a public backlash, and that's the kind of thing we've always got to be working against, unfortunately. Yeah.
All right, thanks very much, Damien. If people are interested in reading Paper Chained, how can they find it or subscribe to it?
Yeah, so the website's paperchained.com, CHAINED.com, and you can read it for free online. You can download the PDF, and there's also, if you subscribe to our newsletter, we only send newsletters out when a new issue's out. So just by the way, issue 11's out, that you'll get an email every 3 months. So you can read it online for free and subscribe for free online, and we're also on Instagram at paper.chained. Yeah.
All right, thanks very much, Damien.
No, thank you. It's been great to be here.